Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Avengers Endgame pregame. Yes, you might not realize that you can pregame a movie, and we are 10 days out and ready to talk some of your best theories about what is going to happen. We've assembled some of your best Team Normal contributors, and we're ready to break things down for you. Don't forget to follow along in the comments on YouTube and on any of the socials with the hashtag TNTalksEndgame. Just in case you don't know who we are, we're going to go around and introduce ourselves and let you know what it is that we are drinking. I've got, again, my little trusty wine spritzer. I'm drinking my Team Cap from Civil War in my little Team Cap glass. And I'm going to throw it over to my trusty teammate, um, Jamie, in her Winter Soldier fancy shirt.
Yes, I know. I'm so excited by this. Look at it. I feel so badass when I wear it. But taking away some badass points, tonight I am drinking, it's elderflower with some Prosecco. So not quite, I think, what the Winter Soldier would go for, but that's okay. It's delicious.
He did want like some fruit in Romania.
That's true. So. He did want those plums, so maybe he would enjoy, you know, a fruity spritzer like this. Let's say yes. All right, Lorena, what about you?
I am Lorena, and I just have my cool Avengers necklace that Emily gave me back in 2015 when we pre-gamed party-wise for a different Avengers. I guess that was the second one. I want to say Ultron. Yeah. It's hard to remember that Civil War was an Avengers movie. And I am, per usual, drinking my favorite beer, which is Razor 5. I actually have a bottle in today, so you can finally see the label. And that's exciting. So, yeah. Zanib? Zanib, you're on mute.
Okay. Hi. I was drinking tea. And I don't have any Avenger memorabilia, but I'm very excited to be here.
Okay, fantastic. So we're 10 days out. How do we feel? How do we feel about things? What do we think is going on, and how do we think that, where are we at? What are our feelings? Are we excited? Are we? What are our initial thoughts?
I'm excited. I feel like I have a lot of pop culture happening right now in my life with Game of Thrones happening and Star Wars dropping trailers, and I'm watching Stanley Cup playoffs. So there's just a lot happening to process. But I just rewatched Infinity War last night, actually to prep for this pregame discussion. And it really got me, like, I don't know, chuffed up again. And well, chuffed, as they say in England. And I've been listening to some of the scores from the different movies, and that really helps. I recommend that if you are someone who ever goes on a walk, like, put on the Avengers theme and just give it your best, like, Winter Soldier death walk or murder walk. And, like, people will look at you like, is that person coming to kill me? Or are they just awesomely confident, you know? But it is moving, and it's getting me pumped up for the film, even though the last film ends, like, even more depressingly than I remembered. Yeah, it can only go up from here, I feel. So that's what I'm looking forward to maybe the most. What about everyone else?
I'm excited. I feel like half of the fun of these things is like the anticipation for, you know, the movie to come out and doing stuff like this and, you know, making all your plans to see the movie and stuff. But I'm also really scared because I just like I feel like, and we'll talk about this later, I feel like there is very little that they have shown us in the trailers and the TV spots and stuff. So much we haven't seen. And I think that means that it's like we're in for a crazy time. And I think that is going to be really fun. But also, just I think because this is the last one in this Infinity Saga, I think I'm probably going to walk out of there also a little bit heartbroken, which I am not ready for. So I'm probably equal parts excited and terrified at this point.
I agree. I think, this is the last time where we're going to see the assembled cast together. People might die, and it's really bittersweet because I want to know what happens, but at the same time, it's like, oh God, I don't want to see people die. And, it after 22 films, it's just been just a incredible, crazy ride. Yeah, it's been 11 years. So what? But I'm excited. I don't know if I'll see it Thursday, I think, when it comes out, just because I know it's going to be really insane and people probably talking and gasping. Not that they shouldn't, they should, but I want to just like take everything in and see it. So maybe the weekend I'll see it.
Okay, so that leads us into our next question is, what are your plans for seeing the movie? So, because I'm seeing it Thursday night with maybe Nikki, and then some of our original OG Letters to Twilight friends, Jenna, Daria, Chelsea, at the ArcLight in Hollywood. And then Jenna and I are going again to see it Friday morning at 10 a.m. at the El Capitan, which is the Disney-owned theater in Hollywood, where we'll get to see costumes and stuff. So I'm seeing it twice already opening weekend, and everything is already sold out. Like, we're in row Z of the ArcLight, and it's in 3D, but that was the only thing that was available Thursday night, and it was insane trying to get tickets.
I can't believe you're going to have seen it 2 times before I see it the first time. That's insane. I'm seeing it on Friday. I already bought my tickets, but just for my local theater. So there's like this meme going around that's like, when I go to Avengers Endgame, these are the rules you need to follow if you're coming to watch it with me. And one of them's like, we're going to be in the theater in our seats 15 minutes ahead. And I'm just like laughing at that because my theater is super like old school, and it's just a very local, like their website's very like 1998 HTML, like there's no cascading style sheets on there. And it was just so, you have to be there an hour ahead. Like, we tried to go to Black Panther and we didn't buy our tickets. Like, we went like 3 hours ahead to buy our tickets, and it was sold out for the entire weekend. Like, when we went on Friday to get our tickets, so we had to see it like a whole weekend later, and buy our tickets, a weekend before to make sure we got them. But it's you can't 15 minutes ahead. I will have been in my seat for 15 more minutes, like that. They let me in after I was standing in line for 30 minutes. So
I know.
It's hardcore, but
I don't think 15 minutes is enough time ahead of time for anywhere for a movie this big. Like, theaters are sold out everywhere. If you walk in 15 minutes, like, best of luck.
Well, Emily's going to ArcLight and they have reserved seats, so she knows.
But I'm just saying, like, you got to be there. People are going to want to do last minute pee runs because the movie is 3 hours. Like, you need to be settled. I am seeing it with my friend on Thursday night. She's the one that I've seen most of the Marvel movies with at this point. And she's actually like going away at a little later on. So she's like, I need to see it, ASAP before I go on my trip. And then I've had like another friend was like, will you see Endgame with me? Like, I think I'm certain people's like, I'm their only Marvel friend and they kind of want to see it, but like they want someone to go with them. So yes, I mean, I am also kind of racking up my screenings already for, the opening days, which it's a 3-hour movie, so it's going to be a lot. But I feel like 3 hours is not that bad. People have been making a big deal about like, oh my god, 3 hours? Are you kidding me? Like Infinity War is like 2.5. And also, I don't know how old some of these people are, but like like, did you not see Titanic in the theater? Did you not do this and that? Like there was
Lord of
last
the
week,
Rings.
Yeah,
right?
Titanic had way less happening than
Yes,
this movie is going to have.
yes.
So
There was a thing going around on Twitter last week. Someone shared a clip from Meet Joe Black, which came out in 1998, and they were like, "This is the craziest shit I've ever seen." It's like that's a crazy movie and it's a crazy clip. But and that movie was 3 hours, and that's just like some random drama. Like movies have been 3 hours before. Just make sure you pee ahead of time and don't suck down your entire drink like in the first, 40 minutes, and you'll be fine. I think people are overreacting, but whatever.
I agree. I think people are overreacting. I mean, Return of the King or any of these other Lord of the Rings were that long. And we even had I feel there was like a JFK Oliver Stone movie that was also super long. I didn't see it in the theater, but yeah, there's I think we're set. And I mean, I have seen that there were people who snatched up a ton of tickets and are now selling them for $500 to
That's so
$1,000.
shady.
And I'm
That's
like,
terrible.
I think
That's
y'all
rent money right there.
I
I
have
mean, Disney still made their cut, and the theaters, it's really like if you want to support the theaters, don't go opening weekend. But why?
Yeah.
You're just gonna have empty theaters that should be full. It's stupid. Like my tickets were $12 plus fees. So, and the fees were not 400 and math dollars. I can't do math
400
as
math
fast.
dollars.
88 or something.
Yeah, it's just
yeah.
people being greedy. Like, come on, this is a fun thing. The world is garbage right now. Just let people have a fun movie. What's your problem?
Right. So, there was a trailer, or Marvel released something, a little featurette today that was their To the End feature, that was sort of a recap of the last 21 movies, and it sort of gets you hyped up of what it means to be a hero. And so there was that. Has anyone watched or seen more than a trailer? Because I have heard there were also other terrible people who are probably selling their other tickets for $1,000 who have leaked footage, that are just the horrible people. And I got off of Tumblr because I don't want to see any leaked footage. And I reblogged something that says, if I see any leaked footage, I will cut a bitch, because I was like, I found a GIF and I was like, I will cut a bitch if anybody spoils Endgame for me. So I was like, I'm not going on Tumblr. That's it. I just can't. So
it's seriously shitty. Like, I don't know why anyone would leak the footage like that. That just like really bothers me. But yeah, I haven't seen any leaked footage, thankfully. I've watched the trailers, but I've watched it like casually a couple times. I keep seeing like I'm on Facebook a lot, and they have the ones that sort of like pop up all of a sudden. And then you're like suddenly watching a trailer and you didn't realize it because you were scrolling. And they seem to have more like different footage than the one trailer I watched. So like every time I'm like, oh, I have a theory, I have a thought, then I like this little moment happens in this pop-up and I'm like, damn it, I guess I'm wrong because like it's in here. But then they're giving us this like, oh, not everything in the trailer is actually in the film or like real footage. And it just seems like a lot of misdirection. So I'm sort of not committing too hard to it. Like trailer wise. But yeah, as far as like I've watched really like I watched the roundtable that Entertainment Tonight did. And it was like the original six and Kevin Feige, and they mostly talked just about their experience filming. So it wasn't like really about the film at all. I'm not going to not recommend it, but it wasn't amazing or anything. They do talk about Stan Lee, and I guess there is going to be a Stan Lee like cameo behind the scenes film coming out, or like home video coming out. So that actually sounded really cool. I'm pretty excited for that. And that was kind of the only snippet I got from that 26-minute video. Thanks, guys. But yeah, I guess as far as like what I've seen, you know, I mentioned I rewatched the film, and I think that really should be like what we need. I don't know. I did watch that thing you just mentioned, the recap, the something to the end game. Is that what you said? I don't remember the name of it. It's really like a pumper. Like, I wish we could play it before this hangout, because it's like the biggest like pumper video ever to get you amped up for Endgame. It was very emotional, but you know, again, I just put on a score and I'm like
I have seen, I have watched stuff. Anything that they have put out, I have watched. I did see yesterday that, you know, people were being shitty and releasing all kinds of footage. So I've been kind of treading lightly. But because I figure anything they show us in a trailer or a TV spot is not going to be too much of a massive giveaway of anything, because otherwise they wouldn't have put it in there. I mean, I know some people do like to know like absolutely nothing though, and so those people are barely watching anything. But I don't mind seeing stuff like that ahead of time. So yeah, I think they've been, for the most part, I think they've been relatively similar. I think they've been saying mostly the same stuff. We've been getting mostly the same kind of feel from the things they have done. I think that everything we've seen so far, apart from probably like a couple quick shots of stuff here and there, is from very early in the movie. I think we're probably looking at like the first half hour or so. Because, you know, everybody's talking about, you know, how they feel about everyone being gone and all of that stuff, and that they need to get them back. And I think that the stuff that's been shown in some of the more recent ones of everyone like in their white suits that's probably like the latest point into the movie that we have seen. This is when they're going to kind of start their you know, whatever plan they come up with, and they're about to go off to do it. But I don't know if anyone else has thoughts on that. But I think everything we have seen so far has been from really early on. So we have not seen like, you know, 75-80% of the movie at all.
Didn't you see some fun things on Twitter? Some little promo-y things that weren't footage?
Yes, I guess that's not really footage, but it is something you can see technically. Today, they, I don't know if these things are released or they tell you about them, whatever. But on Twitter, when you use the hashtags to talk about the movie, it's the thing where, you know, the little like emoji comes up at the end. And so, you know, if you put in Avengers Endgame, it's the little Avengers A symbol, stuff like that. And they have some for a bunch of the characters. And some of the characters are people that there have been some suspicions about. Like there's one for Valkyrie. Like there hasn't been any official word on her, but everyone kind of figures that she's going to be in it. And I did see that they had one for both Korg and Meek, which I was very excited to see, because the general thing has been that like in the beginning, you know, before Thanos gets onto their ship and kills half the people, that Valkyrie kind of escaped with some people. And so people were hoping, because they love Korg and Meek so much, that they were maybe on, you know, that they were maybe with Valkyrie. And so maybe these little emoji things, you know, people can have a little bit of hope. They may be making some kind of an appearance. But
so while there hasn't been any official word, she's on the Chinese poster. So I mean, I don't know why you put a person on an official poster.
right. I mean,
the Dark World, like Thor and Loki were a couple on the Chinese poster.
That is true.
Yes. I mean, I think Valkyrie is going to be in it for sure. I think people just were wondering how many of the other, like how many Asgardians does she have with her, and you know, all of that. And so it looks like maybe at least Korg and Meek are with her. So I hope so, because they were delightful in Ragnarok. Korg especially. Everybody loved Korg.
What about you, Zanib? What have you seen?
I've seen a couple of trailers. I'm one of those people who wants to be surprised. It's funny when I was watching the feature today. I agree with Lorena. I was emotional. I mean, just because there were so many people invested in these films, and just to kind of see like the huge climax come here with everybody. I'm excited, and I like that each trailer. I mean, I've only seen like maybe two or three, but from what Jamie just kind of like described, I like that they're being very mysterious about what's happening. It's like this huge build up, and even people who or may not have gotten their theories right, they'll still be in for a surprise. So I like that it's kind of different, and has a unique nuance to it.
And I think we can all agree, as the fan events that are coming in from, London and Korea and everything, the fashion has been on point. So, okay. I guess we have spent 20 minutes, I guess, stalling. I'm not stalling. We have theories to talk about. We've got some overarching questions that we're going to dive into. Our theories: who dies, who defeats Thanos, some things about time travel. But one of our theories, one of the things that, as we've all been discussing and texting about this, not one of us has come up with Ant-Man is going anywhere near up any anal cavities whatsoever. Thanos said you should have gone for the head for a reason, so no going up the bum.
And we don't mean that head you gross people are thinking of. Chelsea, this is you being called out right now. We mean this head. All right, back to you, Emily.
Thanks for that, Lorena. Chelsea getting called out on the podcast. I mean, even when Paul Rudd was on Graham Norton, he's like, I don't get this. And so I did, because they were on with Kit Harington. Did you guys see that clip where Kit and Chris Hemsworth said, we'll swap spoilers. We'll go in the back and swap spoilers. So Chris told Kit he would tell him how Endgame ends if Kit told Chris how Game of Thrones ended. So I thought that was funny. Okay, so who wants to start with their theory of what they think is going to happen? Who wants to dive in? Who wants to be the first brave soul? Because my theory, just so you know, I had a weird dream that there was going to be some Fight Club, Thor, Natasha, Hulk. It might have been some weird sex thing going on with Hulk and Thanos. And then there were some mermaids that showed up. When I texted everybody this morning, it was, I was like, apparently I have no theories. So I do have theories.
I think that's likely. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Theory, like, directly connects to Iron Man 2. I mean, there's like a boxing ring in Iron Man 2. I don't see, and then in Iron Man 3, like the whole Malibu thing falls out. They're in the water. That's a prime time for the mermaids to show up.
Yeah.
So
Got it.
Maybe you're vibing Tony Stark is either going to die or the ultimate hero of this.
Got it. Yeah.
This your subconscious talking.
I can start. I can dive in, and we can just start, picking at things, and then we can go for it.
Go for it.
So, overall, in terms of plot, from the couple of clips we've seen, they showed a little clip on Good Morning America with a couple people in it. It seems like, you know, the plan is that they need to reverse this. And so they are going to try and get their hands on the Infinity Stones and try to use them to undo what Thanos has done. And in another one of the little, I don't know if this was like a trailer or just like a more of a TV spot they released. Steve says something like, you know, you all know your teams, you all know your missions, something like that. So I think, and I did see something on Twitter that I can pull up that I screenshotted that I really liked. I want to, it just went away. Of course it did. So who I want to give credit. Okay, so this is a Twitter user called Disney Dan. So hi, Disney Dan. I'm sure he's watching. So I think this is a likely theory that each of the original 6 Avengers is going to be essentially responsible for a stone. They're going to go out in these teams, and they are going to be, you know, rounding them up so they can collect them and reverse what Thanos has done. He has a, I guess Dan could be a she for Danny, but I'm thinking Dan is probably a guy. But anyway, he has a breakdown of who he thinks is going to be responsible for each stone. Even this says that because Cap is like the man from the past, he's going to get the time stone. Because Thor is like this, you know, he's essentially like the space prince, he's going to get the space stone. Because Natasha is, you know, from Earth, she's the spy, she's going to get the reality stone. Because Hulk has unlimited strength, he's going to get the power stone. Because Tony is, you know, he was the child prodigy, he's super smart, he's going to get the mind stone. And because Hawkeye is the family man, he's going to get the soul stone. I don't know how likely those specific stone assignments are, but I liked the idea that essentially they were going to be splitting up into teams. You were going to get certain people going after each stone, and they were going to be trying to get them to bring them together so they can use them.
That's like depressing for Hawkeye.
Well, I mean, I think it makes sense.
What does he love most in the world? His children. Like, he's going to have to sacrifice one of his children to.
Well, I mean, we don't know. I mean, for them, it seems like Hawkeye is in a bad spot in this one. He definitely got the worst end of the deal because he is.
That haircut.
Like, there's this character in the comics that they call Ronin, and I don't know a lot about the comics, so I don't know a ton about that. But
he's a what called Ronin?
That he Ronin is kind of inhabiting this character called Ronin. He's like this assassin guy now. But anyway, the theory is that that his entire family is gone. That in the snap, he lost his wife and all his children. Which is far worse than anyone else has lost. I mean, that's worse than getting dusted yourself, to have your entire family, you know, disappear in front of your eyes. I mean, there's the one shot in the trailer, and it looks like it's like him, and he's like teaching his daughter how to like, you know, shoot with the bow and everything. I think that's probably from a sequence where we will find out like what happened to Hawkeye. And I think it's likely that, you know, we're going to see him out like with his family, and then all of a sudden they're just all going to disappear on him, which would be heartbreaking to see. But so yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he would have to sacrifice anyone. Who knows if there's another way to get the soul stone. I mean,
I always felt like if this theory were to play out, like I felt like Cap would be the one to go there because the Red Skull's there. I don't know. I just
I was
like that.
feeling the same way, Lorena, but nobody else knows that the Red Skull is the one guarding it.
But he's
So-
not guarding it anymore, though. Thanos has it now. So do you really have to do anything besides somehow get it for that? Like, who knows how they are going to go about trying to get these stones from him?
So I think that leads into my theory.
Mm.
So this is where I'm gonna, because I'm on board with your theory. So I'm gonna take over and go to my theory, which is I just watched, because I'm doing a rewatch, and I did watch Infinity War to prep for this, but I also watched Ant-Man and the Wasp. And in the post-credits scene, Janet Van Dyne says to Scott, "Don't get sucked into a time vortex. We won't be able to save you." And I don't think she's referencing the TARDIS or seeing a madman in a box for any Doctor Who fans. I think when we see everyone in what looks like the white Pym tech quantum suits, because that's what Ghost was wearing in Ant-Man and the Wasp, they are going to go into that quantum realm, that thing that Scott has in the back of the van. They are going to time travel back to before Thanos has all of the stones. So they would then do what Jamie says, and use them first. And so that's why they are going to potentially run into themselves. This is why they all had different hairstyles. This is why Hawkeye has the hair. This is why Natasha has different hair color. Thor has the short hair. Everybody has
Natasha's hair journey throughout these movies has been a saga. She has really gone for all these looks.
It's like Halle Berry's Storm hair.
Right.
Anyway,
but this one,
back to your red blonde.
You can tell the difference between Cap post-snap and pre-snap. So they are going to do time travel. So I feel there is absolutely time travel in this whole thing. So I'm cool with Jamie's theory because I think it fits with my theory. So if they do go back, Red Skull would still be there guarding the Soul Stone.
I think my only thing, because I do think there's going to be time travel in it. It's just like, is everyone going to go back to the same time? Are different people going to be going back to different times? I think we could have different levels of time travel. I actually think, because some of the things we have seen, and I feel like some of the things set up, I feel like there could also be time travel to the future. I don't know what purpose that would serve, but I just feel like because I feel like some of the younger characters, there's not a lot of kids in these movies, but we have Cassie Lang and we got Monica in Captain Marvel. And I feel like they kind of set both of them up like they wanted to be like a part of something. And so I think I saw an article somewhere that they had cast an older version of Cassie for this movie. I don't know if that's true or not.
So I mentioned, I'm going to say something. They didn't have a name of who this person was playing, but when I did, when we are doing our tags in our posts, there were two characters or two actresses that were cast that had no character name next to them, and I have no idea who they're playing.
All right.
So I don't know who they are, but they could be older Cassie.
Yeah, so I think we could maybe potentially see, depending on how far ahead they go, we could see kind of like a teenage Cassie, and we could see like an adult woman, Monica, because, Cassie wanted to be like, I feel like Scott says something about like, him needing like a sidekick or a partner or something. And like, she wants it to be her. And it's so sweet because he says no, because he's like one of the only good dads in this entire series. And he says, I would be a terrible father if I let you do this, but she really wants to. And we know that Monica, had this like look up at the sky moment when she took off in Captain Marvel. So I think there's going to be time travel. I just don't know that all of them as a group are going to collectively go back to the same time, or if they're going to be splitting off and going to different times. So they could go back to Vormir before Thanos ever gets the stone. They could get the stone some other way by jumping somewhere else. I don't know.
I have to add one other looking up at the sky moment, because there's a moment in Black Panther where when they reveal themselves to the kids in Oakland playing basketball, and there's a bunch of kids that go look at the spaceship, and then there's one young boy that goes towards T'Challa. And in that featurette that they released today, they show that little kid again, and I'm
Right.
like, something's up with you, little kid, and I don't know what it is. And I'm like, okay, they wouldn't have put this little kid back in this featurette if there wasn't something up for you. At least I hope not. So
yeah, I agree, because I was like, who is that? Was that like in the flashback? But no, I'm glad you mentioned that. And I will say that Monica Rambeau is a comic superhero. Like, she becomes Captain Marvel later. So it definitely is, a real thing in the comics happens. I like this theory of the future Jen. And when I was getting all email listening to Captain Marvel soundtrack today, I was actually like picturing this idea of like, who are the, kids in it? And I included Peter in it, but obviously he got dusted. So I don't think he'll be part of this, obviously. But it was just like a very interesting, like, idea that if they do travel into the future, we are going to have these new characters, and it's almost like kind of going back to Zanib's sadness. Like it's like the new gen, next gen or whatever, kind of coming in as the new Avengers, and like almost like we're going to get a little sneak peek of what that might look like going forward. To me, that's exciting. I don't know.
Well, I also think it's exciting because if they do time travel and go to the past, which I think they will, we will get to see cameos from characters who were in previous movies who you might not expect to see it. Like, I think Loki is definitely going to be in it. Whether anything happens with like because like Thanos kills him, whether they're gonna, bring him back to life again for everyone. I think he's definitely going to be in it because some of the set photos that they showed, it looked very much like they were shooting kind of like a redo scenario for the first Avengers movie, and which obviously Loki was there for. And so I think he'll be in it. I think there's the potential to see at least small snippets of lots of different people, because since this is the culminating movie of this entire saga, I think getting little, blips of people.
I'm wondering with
Ether. I was going to say Phil Coulson and Jane and Sif. And
we're both like, give us Sif. Oh my gosh, she's not technically dead. Yeah, I thought that too about like, if they do go back in time, are we going to see like, this whole Asgard? Is Asgard going to be in existence again? And like, how is Thor going to react to that? And Heimdall will be there. Like, how will they be able to affect that?
Right. Time travel stuff can get dicey. So I will be interested to see how they deal with that. Because if you look at like Harry Potter, for instance, when they use the time turner, like we see in Prisoner of Azkaban, when Harry and Hermione go back, they essentially they're looking at another version of themselves, and they're like in two places at once. So, and it's like, and you find out later that was always the case, because in like present day, Hermione hears something behind her and she looks around, and we realize later that it was future Hermione who was there. So are we going to find out that was the case here that if they go back to, like, say, the first Avengers, like, were the like second set, the future set of everyone always there?
It
Or
creates the paradox.
or is it that, like, it's time travel stuff can get very complicated very quickly in terms of what it then means for other stuff that happens.
Right.
And so I don't get hugely hung up on that because I think time travel stuff is really fun. So I don't think people really care. But I will just be curious to see kind of how they work that out story-wise.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, sorry.
Go,
Zanine.
no, go Zanib. Go.
I did think about this. I think for me, time, again, it's just so linear. You don't want to think about other possibilities unless, someone's like messing up a time. But, I'm in the comics, there are alternative dimensions, realities, just kind of like when what's that film called? Spider-Man Into the Universe, you have like 15 different Spider-Men and women and Spider-Pig in one plane, in one space. So they like all belong to a specific universe, a specific dimension. I think, and this is just my theory about time, they will go back in time, or maybe in the future, but it's not going to be their own timeline, if that makes sense. It's going to be like an alternate dimension timeline, because they're going through the quantum realm. But I mean, and you know what, the quantum realm, it's so fascinating because oh gosh, what's his name, the doctor in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Michael Douglas's character,
Hank
his wife
Pym.
goes, yes, thank you.
Janet Van Dyne.
So Janet, when she goes in, like her molecules change. It's really unpredictable. I think that might happen, but I think before they even start looking for the stones, they're gonna need that gauntlet. And I think ever since Thanos, he obliterated it. It's like melted lump of whatever.
I saw.
Yeah, but just to quickly, I'm wondering if he has it, and if he doesn't if it's like burned off, will the Avengers like make a new one? I mean, because they have the resources at their disposal. They have magic through Thor. They have Tony's great mind. I'm like looking at my notes. They have like other stuff that they can pull together and
more to the point, they have the mold, because in Infinity War, the gauntlet mold is where Thor makes his hammer with Peter Dinklage's character. Right.
I saw a theory that there's this scene in I think it was one of the first trailers. There's this shot, and it's of Tony, and I think Nebula is in the background, and they're kind of working on something, and Tony has like these goggles, and he's like, banging on something, that people theorize that was in part, they were essentially making a new Infinity Gauntlet, so that when they got all the stones, they would be able to, to utilize their power with this gauntlet. So I think they could. I think they will probably make a new one. But also, as we're talking about the quantum realm, how do we think Ant-Man gets out of there in the first place? Because we see him in Ant-Man and the Wasp, he goes in and he's like, okay, take me out, guys. But Hank and Janet and what's her name? Hope. They're all gone. They've been dusted, but then we just like see him in trailers. So how does he get out of there at all?
That's a great question.
So my theory is somehow he meets the Ancient One because the quantum realm and wherever Doctor Strange goes in the mirror dimension, or like where he goes to fight Dormammu, that is somehow connected, and he finds the Ancient One there, and the Ancient One helps him get out. That's my thought.
Is that your thought because you saw that Tilda Swinton was cast in the film? And you think she'll show up in this scene? Because I feel like it could happen, even though she's not the Ancient One.
Well, I thought that it had something to do with Doctor Strange, and that was there. And then I added, once I saw that she was in the film, that's how he gets out. So,
well, also, how do we think Tony and Nebula get to Earth? Because in the first trailer, he's like leaving this message for Pepper, and it makes it seem like he thinks he's going to die in space. And then all of a sudden, he's in the other trailers, like he's on Earth, he's talking to people. So, I mean, I've seen some people. I saw one theory that somehow Captain Marvel was going to find them, because obviously, like, she gets this signal and she knows she needs to go to Earth. She might see them on her way, somehow bring them back. I saw one theory, and I don't know how people came up with this, but they thought that Pepper was going to get this message and somehow she was going to facilitate his rescue. I don't know. I mean, obviously we will find out.
Yeah, in some trailer thing I just watched today or yesterday, they're going to space, and Rocket's like, who's been to space before? It's like the joke of the trailer, and everyone in there is like, only Thor is like, I've been to space,
right.
I guess it's like, who hasn't been to space? Okay, none of you better throw up in my ship.
Right.
Well, I don't think Tony's in that. So maybe they're going to space to get him and Nebula.
That could be.
And that's when they get him. Because I feel like at the end of Captain Marvel, the bonus scene was that she shows up.
Yes.
With they're watching the little pager.
Yeah, in that scene, it's Steve,
like, where's
Natasha, Rhodey, and Bruce.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then later they show Nebula skulking about in that room, and then Tony's in that room, Scott's in that room. And I guess that's Avengers base in New York or whatever. I feel like that's potentially what they're going to do. Now, I haven't seen this scene you're talking about with Nebula and Tony banging on something. Is it clear what the background is? Because I'm wondering if they're trying to fix the ship to get.
It could be. I mean, Titan. It could be. Because since it's just the two of them, it could be the ship. I mean, I don't know. It looks very much like it could be the ship they're on. So that might be it. This is just a theory people had, that maybe they were working on a gauntlet somehow. But it very much could be the ship is breaking down and they want to stay alive for as long as they can. So they're doing stuff to work on the ship. Who knows?
And I feel like ship's still there, ship being Peter Quill's ship, that Rocket, or not, I guess not Rocket, but Mantis, because Nebula's Mantis go to Titan in Infinity War, and that's how that group gets there. It didn't look like ship was destroyed at all in the conflict. So I think that, it's at least viable to get out of the planet. But, in that clip, he's running out of air and, gonna obviously not make his 8 o'clock reservations, but, very
well,
dire.
You actually just answered a question for me, and I was like, how on earth would they know? How on earth, haha, would they know where they were going to be at? But you just reminded me that Nebula told Mantis that they were going to be on Titan. So,
which I do want to say, I have seen this get clarified a couple of times on Twitter. Titan, this is not we have a moon in our solar system called Titan. This is not that Titan.
This is not Saturn's moon.
No, this is a different planet. So it's not I mean, obviously, in terms of light years, that shit is all very far away. But they are not even in our solar system. This is an entirely different planet. So
Titan is one of the celestial, they're the beings who come from Titan. Right. So Thanos they're more like Peter Quill's dad.
Right.
They're exist sort of outside of the scope of the regular universe. They're kind of a big deal in that sense.
It's the head of one of the nowhere people. Sorry.
Oh.
Right? It's the same as the head of one of the where nowhere is, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Zaneeb. Is that what you
Oh
were going
no,
to say?
yeah, you read my mind. I was gonna say that. I mean, in Guardians 2, we see with the Stanley cameo, I found it to be very interesting because you see these like people and well aliens. And I'm wondering because we know, well, I know we people might die, and these people, these aliens, I can't talk tonight, these aliens are meant to be kind of like these watchers, like they see the universe but they can't um do anything about certain stuff that happens. So I think they might play a role, if anything, in this.
The Celestials, you mean, will play a role? Like the ancient ones?
So they, yeah, the tall guys with the robes.
Like from there's in I think in Guardians one. Wait, are you talking about the people all in white that they fight in Guardians 2? Or are you talking about when they do like the expository moment in Guardians 1 and explain how the stones were originally created?
I think this was a one. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I think, has had the most post-credit scene of any of them. I think they had like 5. And one of them was Stanley talking to these like super tall alien being things in these robes.
Yeah,
And
that's the one.
I mean,
Okay, I gotta rewatch this.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if people just assumed that it was like a gag because that was like Stanley's cameo, but I mean, I guess there is the potential that these beings, and I don't honestly, I don't remember what he says to them there. I don't remember, but who knows?
Okay.
At this point, literally anything we have seen in any of these movies so far could come into play. So I would not be at all surprised.
Agreed.
Well,
I need to
also,
rewatch.
sorry, I'm like so pumped about this film. There is that theory floating around in the internet that Stanley's character, the cameo guy, he's like the one person. So he's not like he's playing multiple versions of himself. It's like this one person who just happens to be the wrong place at the wrong time, and he's like sharing stories of like all of his adventures on Earth, and somehow um he ended up with the Watchers apparently.
I like
That's
that idea.
hilarious. Oh my gosh. I love that.
Speaking of that, we did hear that this is the last official cameo of Stan Lee's in this film. That's the only one that they have officially on film. So we don't know if there's going to be one in Spider-Man Far From Home,
I think it's
which
super fitting for this to be his last one. Like, this is the culminating movie of, I think they're calling all of these the Infinity Saga. So
yeah.
for this to be his last one, I mean, it's amazing that he was there for as much of it as he was. That's fantastic. But
Yeah. I have to say, we know that, Spider-Man Far From Home is coming out, and I'm really sort of annoyed that they already released the trailer for that, because we know then that Peter makes it back.
yeah.
And I'm really just annoyed. Why couldn't they wait?
I
And I get that it's Sony. And so if it was Disney, Disney would have waited until after this movie was released, I think, to release the trailer. I think Sony should have waited to release the trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home. Um,
I
Thoughts?
yeah, I mean, I think you're right, but I also feel like because the amount of people who died or got dusted in the last one, and because of who some of them were, like Black Panther and stuff, like people that we know are going to go on to continue to be in these, my assumption is that they figured that everyone knew that this was not going to be permanent, that somehow these characters were going to be coming back. And so that since that was a given, the like the mystery of the movie and the fun of the movie and stuff was going to be watching to see how they were going to accomplish it. I mean, that's my only thought, because yeah, it's because it almost seems like you would think it would be anticlimactic to show, oh, you know, you saw Peter like tragically die in the last one, but like he's going to be okay because here's the trailer for the next movie he's going to be in. So,
But
yeah.
Chadwick Boseman is doing press. They're like, so, you know, what about Avengers Infinity War? Is like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm dead.
I
Like,
know.
he's giving these answers. And
I
so
know.
and Peter's, or not Peter, Tom Holland's not doing press.
No.
Well, Tom Holland cannot keep a secret. So I think they probably were like,
true.
you know what? You
They were
can't
like,
handle
"Go
this.
away."
We love you, but shh.
Yeah, so that's why I think however this happens, it's going to be stuff that's really kind of crazy and unexpected. And so people are not going to mind knowing what the outcome is. It's like, it's not the destination, it's the journey. Like, I think however they are going to tell this story, they have enough faith in it that people are going to find the ride enjoyable, even though they know what the outcome is going to be. I mean, that's my guess.
Okay.
Okay.
Marina, what do you got? What's your theory?
I'm going to talk because my theory is like not at all related to you guys' theory. This was kind of my original theory after seeing Infinity War. And some of the trailers and your commentary tonight has made me be like, oh, my theory is so dumb. And I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's totally inaccurate. And it's like, my theory is like really good for a book, but doesn't probably play well on the screen. So it's very doubtful it will happen. I'm emotionally okay with that because, you know, there's always fanfic, but I still feel like we're already in the scenario that's supposed to be playing out. So when Dr. Stephen Strange says, you know, as soon as he like looks at the better than Powerball odds of them succeeding over Thanos,
we did have this conversation last night. Their odds of beating Thanos are better than any one person winning the Powerball. So there is that.
Like, think about that. If you're like upset, like maybe they won't win at the end, like it's more likely than you winning the Powerball. And if you're not in America, like it's even more likely because your odds are 0. But yeah, so the odds of them coming out of this were 1 in 14,605,000. And the Powerball odds, they vary depending on, you know, which Powerball we're talking about, but they're all like way worse than this. So you're definitely looking at pretty solid odds of them defeating Thanos in some way, right? And Dr. Stephen Strange is sworn to protect reality in the universe. This dude is not going to give up on that. He makes a point to Tony Stark where he just specifically says, like, when it comes to me protecting the stone, me protecting you or the kid, meaning Peter Parker, like, I'm always choosing the stone because I have an obligation. And he's not going to just drop that obligation suddenly when they're being faced with Thanos and their plan almost works, but Peter Quill has emotions, blah, blah, blah. No, like, this is the plan. He knows already this is what has to happen. If he interferes in any way that wasn't visualized in the outcome, like, he will fuck the plan up. And he knows he's about to be dusted. Like, he already knows all of this is going to happen. And then further into the future, possibly the future, where Monica is an adult, you know, like, he knows what the outcome is. So when he says we're in the end game, like, he means it's happening. We're already in it. Like, this is occurring. There's a reason I gave him the Soul Stone. Tony, you're the only person who's going to survive this besides Nebula, who I literally don't know at all. And we're really not even sure how she arrived on Titan. FYI, when you were talking about that earlier, I was like, how did Nebula even get there? It's like not shown in the film. She just like shows up. She's a robot, so maybe she can just like magically travel. I don't know. But problematic. Anyway, he's talking to Tony, and Tony's all like mad, you know, angry. Why did you give him the stone? And he's just all, you know, this was part of the plan, dude. Just chill the fuck out. But we need Tony to have the emotional moment of Tom Holland or Spider-Man dying, you know, in his arms, right? Like suddenly this mass isn't there anymore in your arms and everything's horrible. In order to ignite Tony to do whatever he needs to do in this next film. And so I think that, like, to me, we're already in it. We're already in the one scenario where they're successful. And I still feel like the Soul Gem is going to be the key player. And I know, like, I like debate with myself even now that, oh, well, they focus so much on the Soul Gem in this film. And I'm like, well, maybe it's because we don't know about the Soul Gem yet, right? Okay, so like this is, you know, we've learned about all the other stones or gems or whatever we want to call them. This is the only one we don't know about before Infinity War. So of course they have to spend more time on it or whatever. But I personally feel like this is the most complicated gem. I actually feel like it should be the center one and not one of the, you know, 4 knuckles, because it's so representative of this like soul life, like this, you know, he has to sacrifice Gamora in order to take possession for it. So it's like a soul for a soul trade. And I just don't think that he loved her enough. It was too abusive. Like he kidnapped her, and you know, maybe he was emotionally attached to her, but I just don't consider that real love. And you would really have to truly love someone to sacrifice them in order to possess the stone. So even though he got the stone, I still don't believe he possessed it. And maybe he could use part of the power to like make the dusting, but you know, potentially how you would kill half the universe wouldn't be this, they would just like disintegrate over a undetermined period of time, because it feels like Nick Fury dies quite a bit later. You know, some people don't dust at the same time precisely. So it's like, why does someone dust later than someone else? And, you know, there's not really a clear understanding there. And my thought is like, he didn't really do it, you know, and he tried to do it, but he couldn't really do it because he didn't have full possession of the Soul Stone.
And I have to interject because I had this exact same thought as I was watching this, and I was like, I don't think a stone who is bound by this particular power would allow somebody who, you know, if this is bound by love, to give up something by love. I think you're absolutely right, because I don't agree that, you know, a stone would allow this abusive dictatorship sort of relationship to be undone by this sort of sacrifice, because that wasn't a sacrifice. He, you know, it was a murder. It wasn't a, you know, a sacrifice. And I think I'm going to go biblical for a second, but when you have Isaac and Abraham and Isaac sacrifice, you know, that was what a sacrifice was. You know, I don't think that that is anything what this was at all. And I was like, why would the stone allow itself to be taken when it was under these particular circumstances? Because
I think you're both right. My only question in that scenario is, why wouldn't that have been determined at the time? You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Why in the moment would, like, because he like wakes up in that lake and he looks in his hand and he has the stone. Why would the stone then not have said or determined or whatever, no, that was not what, that's not the kind of thing I'm talking about. This does not count.
Right.
So I mean, and maybe we will find that out.
You, okay. JB. I do. My theory continues.
Okay.
So I have taken that, and yeah, the Soul Stone's like, yeah, you wake up in this Lake Beach thing and you feel like you have achieved your goal. But Red Skull said it. He said, you think you're prepared to handle this. We all think we're prepared, but no one is. You don't know what you're doing until you do it, and then you're not prepared. And so he didn't mean, oh, you can't sacrifice someone you claim to love. He meant you can't actually do this because it's impossible to do. Like, you will be stopped before you can do it. And so the fact that he throws Gamora, he wakes up the stone, he's still in this peril. And when he snaps his fingers, the first thing he sees is Gamora. And maybe it's in his little mind, but I think he went into the Soul Stone, that the Soul Stone said, okay, it's time to claim you now, and took him inside and was like, let me pass judgment on you through Gamora, who you claim to love and have sacrificed. And she's so upset when she's like, what did it cost you? And he says everything. She cries. I mean, she's like properly upset, and he realizes that he's messed up in a way. Like, he has regret in that moment. And then he comes out of that and he's back on Wakanda, and Thor's all like, what did you do? Oh. You know, Thor-like, and the gauntlet's all messed up, and then he's like, I'm gonna like space stone out of here to my farm, you know. And it's like he's on his farm and he feels good about everything, but I don't think his trial is done. And I think that this film is gonna push him. Like, this is my theory, is that the Soul Stone isn't finished with Thanos yet. And that when we jump into the quantum realm, we're actually going into that stone, and we're finding Gamora, and we're using her, whether it's future or past her, or both of them together, not sure. I feel like if you're a soul, you exist in all parts of you, all times of you. So any version of yourself could be in there. And we can see her really just like push him to the limit of Thanos, being him, like what he can handle. Because in some of the trailers, they're talking about like, you know, oh, we can get the stones, we're going to use them. Like, but they kind of say it like, we're going to have him or he use them again. So like, what does that mean? Does that mean in the future he decided, oh, I'm going to use the stones again to bring everyone back? And then they cut to like all this other like, yeah, let's do it, you know, crap in the trailer. Right. And to me, it was like, okay, that's what they're doing. They're like pushing him to the point where he emotionally has this regret. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to use my power to bring all these people back and go back to the point in time where we ended. And it's going to start again, you know? And then what he does, I don't know. But it just, to me, feels like this soul gem is going to be the key to his change, to him as like a character, his growth or whatever. In like, I mean, I see Thanos's point of view in that like things are destroying themselves and it's stupid. His methods are a little psychopathic, but you know, he does have like good intentions. So I feel like he's capable of growth, potentially. But I think it will be very devastating for him. So he's kind of like a Cersei character, not to Game of Thrones it too much, but I feel like he does have the capacity of growth, even if he seems very staunch in what we've seen of him, and very, very black and white and cruel. I don't know. I feel like the soul gem's the key. I do think there'll be time travel. I don't think it'll be linear at all. Like, I think it will be kind of how Zaniba's hinting, like, when you get in the quantum realm, shit changes. Like, it's not normal. It's not what you expect. And I feel like nothing we're going to see is very expected. But again, as I said at the beginning of my little diatribe theory here, like, this is more novel material than it is. This is like a 3-part novel trilogy, like ridiculous thing than like a movie that Disney's putting out under Marvel. I feel like it's too complicated and maybe too emotional, like too philosophically emotional for a film.
But
that
I
make
can see it.
Yeah, I can see a lot of parts of what you said. I want to talk about what you said about Doctor Strange because I think you are right. Like, but I also have questions because he said, how many scenarios do we win? That was the question. And he says one. So, yes, this one that plays out, this is what had to happen. This is the one. But my question is, so he says one, and then the scene cuts after that. Presumably, you would think it would be okay, well, then what do we have to do? Um, and you would think he would tell them. However, the thing that plays out, a lot of the characters seem surprised. And so that's where I have confusion because, when he gives up the time stone, he says he would never do that. And he does that. So this is what he had to do. But Tony says, like, why did you do that? And when Thanos like disappears off of Titan to go to Wakanda, Quill is like, oh my God, did we just lose? Like they seem surprised. Wouldn't Strange have told them, listen, this is what has to happen for us to defeat him in the end. It's like losing the battle to win the war. And so if he didn't tell them that because he didn't think that he could, or if that was not one of the things he saw, what did he tell them instead? Like, I don't know.
Doctor Strange doesn't seem very forthcoming with a lot of information. And I mean, his and Tony's interactions were like, when he's like, which master do you serve? Which master, like, I don't think Peter could take anything seriously, even though they ended up working together. I don't know that the Guardians could, take in much information without being too plucky because they don't know what that word means.
What does that mean?
So
no, I agree. I think that Strange wouldn't have told them, and he wouldn't have even told them a fake reality. I think he knew in his, he would have seen that they asked this. He would have seen this whole scene play out. So he would have known in one version, I tell them what to do, and then they fuck it up. Or he does tell them and they fuck it up, and that's the version they win. Like whatever happened, he played it out exactly the way he knew he had to in the version he saw where they came out winners, right? So where they defeated Thanos and whatever that means, we're not even sure what that means yet. And it to me, it's like whatever he did was driven by the truth of what he knew. And so he would have divulged as much or as little information as possible, knowing how that would affect all the characters. So if they're surprised, it's because they are, they didn't know that was going to happen because it didn't, like, he didn't tell them. He was like, obviously they had a plan where he was going to be there and everyone else is hiding. Like that could have been all he told them. Like, we're going to use the cape to capture his gauntlet and then you're going to pull it off. Like, that's our plan. Cool. Okay, we're going to do that. We're going to beat him down, distract him, and then we're going to pull the gauntlet off. And what he didn't tell them is that Quill's going to have an emotional reaction and this is going to fail.
So the assumption is he told them something like that and they were like, okay. And then they just assumed that did not work. And that is why they are then surprised.
Right. And they're like, why did it, they weren't like, because if someone was like, I can prophesize the future, you wouldn't believe them. Like, if that's the first time you've ever met someone who told you that, would you be like, yeah, legit, you're right, and everything you say is going to come true? I mean, especially when that person is kind of a sassy douchebag.
I mean, if he could do all the things that Doctor Strange could do, I might. But
he hasn't really shown that yet.
And Tony has only been giving him a hard time. Dude, you're making me look bad in front of the wizard, or Peter, save the wizard, or, that's all the hard time Peter's been giving him. So he hadn't really, been giving him a fair shake. And so anyway.
So I mean, yeah. So that is my assumption, that Strange must have either lied or purposefully withheld information to get that scenario to play out, because he knew that that's the one that had to play out.
And
Yeah,
you
I
know,
mean, it's not self-serving for him to play it out that way. So, what were you gonna say, Zinni?
oh no, I was gonna say, and I know Emily, you saw the IMDb page with Tilda Swinton making a cameo. I mean, this could be an interesting gateway scene between Strange and Tilda's character, just to kind of, I guess, maybe have an argument. I mean, you know, like although he does have this infinite wisdom, he's got the stone, he's still human. He has human emotions. So I could see a scene between them kind of arguing, like him wanting to tell Tony and the others everything, but she reminding him that he's more than just human. He's this kind of like almost like this powerful being who needs to kind of choose his words wisely and make decisions according to what's right and not what's easy, or what's um I guess what he wants, basically. So it's, I don't know, it just kind of like popped in my head.
And his character has always been extremely cocky. So I mean, that's what led him to the Kathmandu in the first place. So is he could not be without his hands. He was you know, a surgeon who knew everything. And so that's the type of character Dr. Stephen Strange was. So, um, Zanib, have we hit all of your theories?
Well, I mean, I found Lorena's really interesting theory about Thanos as a kind of like his ultimate defeat, of what that might look like. You know, it's interesting, in like the last couple of films, death has been it's been interesting just to kind of like see how the heroes deal with death. I mean, just looking at Peggy when she passed on, and Cap being such a huge taking on such a huge role during her funeral, and then of course with um, people, you know, people losing loved ones, and it, for me, it's like death is so interesting, especially if you're a superhero, especially if you have like powers that kind of like defeat the odds sometimes. For me, I it's interesting because, you know, on one hand, the right kind of, or I guess the more like straight way to defeat Thanos would be to kill him. But on the other hand, it's interesting to kind of take this villain who at times does seem very three-dimensional, and kind of the one way to defeat him would be not to kill him, but to maybe take away the one thing he values a lot. And in his case would be his powers and his, just like, you know, ways that he kind of talks to people. And in a sense, you know, like defeat him by separating him from everything and everybody else, and locking him away in a like a paradox, or a time space continuum where no one can talk to him and he can't talk to anybody, and just like slowly his mind deteriorates,
Yeah,
and just
Goose could swallow
have
him.
his, yeah, and have his power stripped, you know, stripped
That's
away.
interesting. I
It's,
love Goose.
yeah, because it's like, you know what I mean, after 22 films, yeah, you can kill the guy, you can, you know, maim him or whatever, but it would be more interesting to do something different and kind of flip the switch.
Okay, so I want to ask this question. Um, Thor at the end of Infinity War looks like he like goes for the chest, and Thanos says you should have gone for the head. But I want to ask this because when they're on Titan, they're trying to get the gauntlet off. could they not have lobbed off the gauntlet from his hand? Like, could they not have taken Stormbreaker and cut off Thanos's arm? Would that not have also solved the problem?
Well, on Titan, they didn't have Stormbreaker.
No, I know, but when they were in Wakanda, couldn't Thor have cut off his arm?
I mean, the argument was after Infinity War came out that why couldn't Doctor Strange have used one of his like, you know, time things to essentially like sever it from his hand? And I mean, I think that's valid. I think that because it's he's using it to like, yeah, it happens to one of Thanos's other like dudes in the park in New York. That happens. So there's precedent for it. I don't know why they couldn't just do that. But again, this happens after Strange says, you know, we have one scenario where we win. So I guess he saw that was not going to do it. From a logical perspective, you would think that that's exactly what they would have done. So I agree with you. Yeah, I don't know.
But I mean, maybe the Mind Stone is connected to his mind and he can just, I don't know.
But he wouldn't have had that. He didn't have that yet. That was the final stone he got. So you mean from Thor's moment?
Yeah. I don't know. I just was like, when I watched that, I was like, why didn't he chop the hand off, chop his arm off?
Right.
So, well, who do we think is going to die?
Oh, boy. Well,
I think Cap is going to die.
See, I was thinking that too, but recently I have been thinking so many people have said Cap's going to die, Cap's going to die, Cap's going to die. It's been like almost a foregone conclusion walking into this movie. So now I think that there's a possibility that they know that everyone assumes Cap is going to die, so he's not going to. But I don't know. I mean, of all of the, you know, if we're looking at the original Avengers, I think Cap would be the one to go. But I mean, I'll be devastated. I'm one of that person. I never want any of the good guys to die. I want everyone to just win and then be happy and whatever, because I think it would be really tragic for Steve to go, because, you know, he will essentially have been like fighting his whole life. Like, you know, he fights when he's, you know, small. And then even after he gets the serum, he goes to World War II. As soon as he wakes up, he gets called into this Avenger business because Loki comes. And he's just fighting battles all the time since then. So his entire life will have just been him, you know, constantly battling. And he does not get a second of peace. So
he doesn't age.
Right. No, he doesn't age.
But I just, I think I will not be surprised if Cap dies. I think that is a very likely scenario.
And I think he dies barely after being reunited with Bucky. And I think it's going to be heart-wrenching, because Chris Evans says he choked up 3 times within the first hour. So I know I'm going to be bawling my eyes out. So will you guys cry in a movie like this?
Chris is very emotional.
I was going to say,
yes. So I will cry.
I was going to say, I'll cry for sure.
He cried like ridiculously when Frigga died. So she's definitely going to cry.
I cry at everything. For sure, I'm going to cry multiple times. I will cry when I'm sitting in the theater and like the Marvel thing starts to play.
That's when I cry. I'm like, fanfare is happening. Yeah, I am sobbing.
I know.
Big
will cry.
Moments are about to occur.
Well, people, we should keep track of how many times we cry.
We need to keep track.
Yeah. So when we do our recap after, we can say how many times did you cry. I will absolutely
tally.
I will be a mess. I should do like a before and after photo, like going into the theater, and then after I come back with like the raccoon eyes. I absolutely will cry. No matter what happens, I'll be crying.
Jamie, those aren't raccoon eyes. Those are Winter Soldier eyes.
That's right.
Oh, I was going to say rocket eyes.
Especially if I wear my shirt. I'll just have the black across.
Do your murder walk. at the end.
I mean, who else dies? I don't think Tony dies. I think he retires.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that he, like, okay, so at the beginning of Infinity War, he has this weird, like, pregnancy child dream. I think that when he comes back, Pepper is going to be pregnant, and that he's going to be like, I'm done with this. Like, he's fighting for his unborn baby. And then when it's over, he's like, yeah, this is, I'm going to get a little farmhouse like Clint and do my thing with Pepper, you know, except it'll be a mansion because he's a billionaire, but whatever. That's my thoughts on Tony. I do think Cap is pretty primed to die. But I think more prime to die is Thor, because even though he's kind of a god and, you know, 1,500 years old, seems like a good time to go. Like, he doesn't have anyone in his franchise alive. Like, maybe, you know, Korg, Meek, and Valkyrie, but Loki's dead, Heimdall's dead, all of, you know, the Fandral crew is dead. The Asgard's gone, half his population's gone. I know in the comics they rebuild Asgard in like Kansas or some stupid shit like that, but like, this isn't Superman. Like, we don't need to do that. Like, just leave Krypton where it is, right? You know, I don't know if we need Thor back. And like, it's not because I dislike Thor. I love Loki, and we wouldn't have Loki without Thor, but how can we have this without Heimdall and like the Rainbow Bridge? And it just seems like it's very lame. Like, his franchise is kind of lame if we don't have that Norse mythology happening in it. And almost all of those characters are done or told through some format. You know, so that's my thought, is like the most likely to die would be Thor, just from a like fiscal standpoint, more than Cap. But you know, a lot of Cap's people are dead too, and you know, he does have replacements in store. So like Falcon and Bucky both could replace him as Captain America, you know, in the next realm of that, and sort of take that leadership over from him. And I do think that's a viable option. So, you know, I do think that could happen, but
well, and I think it's also I mean, Cap especially, but several other ones have very self-sacrificial tendencies. I mean, he's the soldier. Thor also is, you know, he's been fighting, going out and fighting wars and battles. So he's also going to have that, you know, so I think there are characters who just in their personality are more likely to, when they are up against it, because like in the first Avengers movie, when Steve and Tony are like sniping at each other, you know, Steve says something about like, you know, you're not the guy to like lay over the wire. And Tony says, you know, I just cut the wire. Like, I think there are some people who just have more of that tendency where if it's looking like we are not all going to get out of this alive, someone is going to have to essentially like take one for the team. I think there are characters like Steve and probably Thor who are maybe going to be more likely to just not even have a conversation about it. They're already just running ahead to do it because that's just who they are.
Right. So, and Thor even says, like, I'm not, you know, when him and Rocket are having a heart-to-heart, because Rocket feels obligated to as captain, he's like, you know, why are you going to defeat Thanos? Like, what are you fighting for? And he's like, well, if I don't kill Thanos, then like, what if I die trying to do this? Like, what do I really have to lose? Nothing. I've already lost everything. So Thor's kind of coming from a place of emptiness. I think maybe he'll like re-find his love when he's with everyone and like meets, you know, Captain Marvel, and he's like, oh, another weird person like me with a cool haircut. Like, I'm cool with this. But it's like, we'll see what Valkyrie plays into this or not. Because I think they were trying to set them up as sort of a love interest. I just don't know what Thor has left to care about at this point.
So I think Valkyrie brings back the rest of the Asgardians, and
All
he
of them?
realizes the ones that are left, not all of them, the ones that are left, and he realizes he does have something to live for. And Carol is like, I know a planet that can house your people. Let me take you to them. And she helps them find a new place. And Thor introduces Carol to Valkyrie, and they live happily ever after, and then on their new planet. So that's my
Carol and Valkyrie are getting together.
I am so here for the Carol Valkyrie ship.
Yes, the Carol Valkyrie show. So then they live.
That's way more interesting than WandaVision.
Yes, right? Let's have that story. But so Thor finds that his people are alive again, and so he's able to find his happiness. But his franchise ends, but Carol helps them find another place. I think Falcon
lives, Rose.
Yes, see that's my all the Asgardians live. But I think Bucky or Falcon, I think Falcon takes over as Captain America, and Bucky helps, but I think he doesn't want to be in charge because he's old and he's mourning Cap.
He's old. He doesn't want to be in charge because he's old. It's like he's 90 years old. He's like, you know what? I'm done. I've done this enough. I'll bring snacks. Make sure we have water. Just you do it. I mean, they're gonna have their show on Disney Plus. So yeah. So
their buddy Cap show.
Yeah.
The buddy Cap show.
I don't know who else I feel. I mean,
on a similar question, we're assuming, they're going to go and they're going to undo, all the people who have been dusted. Do we think automatically everyone who got dusted is coming back? Do we think, because Gamora is in a different situation than they are because she did not get dusted, but under normal circumstances, you would say she is dead for sure because she got thrown off a cliff and crashed at the bottom. But I also don't see that as a likely scenario. So who do we think is coming back? I
think it's like Marina's theory of the Soul Stone because it wasn't used appropriately. I don't think
think she's dead. I think she's alive inside the Soul Stone. Like it's taken her in. I think the only truly dead person is Heimdall. And I don't think Loki is dead, even though he should be, because he never dies. And so I feel like Thanos is like, no resurrections this time, but he didn't get resurrected last time. He never actually died. It was just a fake out. So, it just seems, is he really dead? You can't kill a character and bring him back in the same film and me believe he's dead ever. I'm never going to believe it until you tell me for certain he's dead, and I'm still probably not going to believe it. He has a show. So at some point we're seeing him. Maybe it's in the past, but it just kind of he looks like he dies, but also Thanos' hands are really big and he's crushing Thor's skull, and then he's supposedly choking Loki, but I feel how could he actually do that with his big hand? It would be too large to fit around Loki's slender little neck. So I don't know. It seemed unrealistic when I rewatched it and had my Tom Hiddleston needs.
But we heard the neck snap. I heard it.
Yeah, that was a gruesome crunch.
But I also feel he's I don't know. That's my fanfic.
The only way I could see him being alive is if he somehow escaped on, however, you know, the ship or whatever with Valkyrie and all of them, and who we were seeing was not actually
Wasn't
Loki
him. Yeah.
somehow.
Oh, that's so clever, Jamie.
We
That's
will
what he
see.
did
You
last
should have
time.
corrected here.
Right,
I mean, there's a
right.
theory.
There's like, you know, normally,
Goose.
like in the first movie, we saw when he would do that, he was just a projection. There's all kinds of things. Yeah, like the magic he does, you know, who knows if he would be able to do those things kind of like remotely from wherever he might be. But I see that as a more likely scenario than him just somehow being resurrected again. You know, when everyone thought he was dead, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, in my fanfic, he totally could have done your scenario easily, but my fanfic isn't canon, even though it should be, because Jane Foster would still be alive, FYI, along with everyone else. But yeah, no, I agree that that is the most likely scenario of him living, but it would kind of feel cheap unless there was like a good moment where we get almost like a little flashback of when kind of that post-credit scene of Ragnarok, when the ship arrives and they're kind of like, oh shit, like we're about to be taken over by Thanos, and then it's like cut to black. We get more of that scene where he's like, take everyone and let's go. Like, and Valkyrie's like, cool, let's take you and you and you. And then Loki like sneaks on because he knows he has the Infinity Stone. But I also feel like Thanos can sense the stones, kind of like how Harry Potter can sense the Horcruxes. So he would just like know that the stone wasn't there.
I mean, I think the stone was genuine. It's just, you know, I don't know, a question of whether that was actually Loki.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
I think you guys are having some wishful thinking.
I think it is. I mean, I gotta admit,
yeah,
I know.
I think maybe he's gone, as heartbroken as that would be, because I did hear that one of the theories for his show was going to be essentially like it was going to be, they were going to be like, oh, here's a big moment in history, and like Loki was there, and like here's how he had a little hand in it. It was going to be a little bit sort of like revisionist history thing with like, you know, Loki mischief in there for those things. So I don't know if that's actually what the show is going to be about or not, but if so, that takes place in the past, and so Loki does not have to be alive now for that to be the case.
That's
because
totally,
I have to tell you,
they're just stealing my fanfic.
He wasn't on the cast list on IMDb.
I know. But I still think that's one of the things that I think that's one of the things that they would keep a secret. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I think that because there were a lot of people not on there, because I had to go back to Infinity War and take a bunch of names.
Right.
Because Chris Pratt wasn't on there. Zoe Saldana wasn't on there. There were a ton of people who were all dusted who were not on that cast list for this. And I was like, oh, you people are mean. So, okay.
Or they're honest and they're just trying to emotionally prepare you that the people are dead.
That is true.
I thought for sure that Thanos was going to die, but now I kind of like Zanib's theory about him not dying. I think you're right. That could potentially be more interesting, because more often than not, I don't think all of the villains in these movies die. Like I'm remember it, like Justin Hammer went to jail at the end of Iron Man 2. Like not everybody's dead, but a lot of them are dead. And so for this to be the big bad villain, the assumption would be, oh yeah, they're going to kill him for sure. So for them to then not do that, I think could be interesting. I like that one, Zanib.
Okay. We have been talking for 1 hour and 40 minutes about the Endgame.
We could go on.
We could talk as long as the movie itself is going to be about our theories. 3 hours and 4 minutes.
I did have to take a bathroom break, so you know. But I don't drink anything before movies, and I was drinking for this.
So we, I think, have sussed out every possible one of our own theories. I'm sure there are other theories that are out there, and we will probably find more in the next 10 days. But in 2 weeks, which is Tuesday, April 30th, we are going to be back for our post game recap. We're sticking with they titled it Endgame, so we're sticking with the sports ball references. This is our pregame. We're going to have the end game, and then we're going to have the post game. So Tuesday, April 30th, we will be back. Your team normal contributors will
We're
be
going to
here.
be, there's a very good chance we could be laughing at ourselves. Something literally entirely different than anything we have said has happened. And we're going to be like, can you believe we spent almost 2 hours talking nothing but nonsense because not a single thing happened?
Or we were completely right, and we're like, look at us and how smart we were.
Yes. If we were wrong, we're going to delete this one. This one, we'll wipe it from the internet so that nobody knows that we had no idea what we were talking about.
So thank you guys so much for joining us on our Talking Marvel Avengers Endgame pregame for this evening. We were really super glad you joined us, and we will talk to you post game. Have a great night, everybody.